This is Dumu, a French musician who has completely mastered the idea of chill electronic music. Through the many phases of his life, his music has changed with it, from light progressive house, mind-boggling trap, neuro-hop, future bass and pop, and back to house with a totally reimagined style. Dumu's musical journey so far has been a story of growth into adulthood. From first loves and new friends to the darkness of moving away and losing relationships, Dumu manages to make music that is constantly catchy, constantly dynamic, and constantly a different side to Charlie Kurata. So, since this video is mainly going to focus on the public discography of Dumu, I'll be starting from the first track Dumu has public on his SoundCloud. Dumu put out his first track that's still public, his remix of Strangers by Seven Lions, on August 16th, 2015. A gorgeous, light progressive house tune, incredibly nostalgic of the era of progressive house at the time. With a more bassy first drop and an explosive last drop to bring the world building home, and the vocals that couldn't have been mixed better, this is truly a classic 2015 progressive house tune. If you listen to this for the first time, you'll still feel nostalgic, I promise. I imagine there was a lot of musical growth between the Strangers remix and his first public original single, because what came next was totally different. When you think of 2016 trap, what do you think of? Yeah, me too. But Bathtub Galaxy is not that. The pure musical freedom expressed in Bathtub Galaxy is genuinely inescapable. The quick beat with fun samples and a bubble popping sound throughout, this genuinely sounds like a song from a different era. Dumu would continue in this unique, dream world bubbly trap style for his next few tracks, experimenting with different elements. Love Spells with Elise Ducrest is a perfect example, combining the bubbly elements of Bathtub Galaxy with heartfelt love story vocals. With this style, Dumu put his name on the map, and in the midst of his rise, put out a neuro-hop remix of Nervo's Anywhere You Go for Monster Cat's remix competition of the song. While he didn't win, it was obvious he had eyes on him. As he went into 2017, Dumu experimented with this style a bunch. Fainted is a perfect example, combining more chill-out garage-esque elements to his already existing deep wet sound design. In early 2017, Dumu put out Spring Roll and Valentine, two purely instrumental tracks that tell a story through the cover art and, more importantly, the music itself, about a young, flourishing love. This is the first time we hear the quiet, raw, and lazy-sounding guitar strumming and harmonica-esque lead that we'll come to hear in Dumu's biggest project yet. On April 5th, 2017, Dumu announced the biggest step in his career thus far. His debut EP, titled Illuminate, would be released on Monster Cat. Dumu cited Monster Cat as an indirect spark to his journey into musical production. With Dumu being a fan of Monster Cat since its fourth ever release, it was a dream come true, and he wouldn't let it go to waste. The EP released on April 14, 2017 in the midst of a Monster Cat era full of heavy tunes from massive artists. Just to cite an example, the other artists that debuted on Monster Cat around this time consisted of Keizo, Dirty Phonics, Bass Nectar, Reach, and Wolfgang Gartner, just to name a few. The release proved to be even more out of place when it was realized that this is Dumu's most chill project yet. The title track features the soft vocals of Slyleaf, with the loudest part of the track being the soft kicks. Illuminate was arguably the best track Dumu could have debuted on Monster Cat with. It was raw both musically and lyrically, as he delved deep into his chill side. The track was unlike anything Monster Cat had released before, and offered a glimpse into the bubbling SoundCloud chill-out scene. The first track on the EP, Recovery, is the most Dumu track you could have heard at the time. It combined his chill elements and slowly progressed into a more poppy instrumental, never losing your attention. Together with Core Eye, served as an orchestral, slowly evolving emotional masterpiece. It's quiet and doesn't feature any vocals, actively making it the second most raw track on the EP next to the title track. For Her, the EP's finale, is a dreamy liquid dubstep track with so many little pieces of ear candy. And I believe the first time we hear Dumu's hums that we'll be seeing many more times to come. The EP was out of place on the label, but in a great way. It revived some of the fans' love for chill out again, and again gave a glimpse into the bubbling underground chill out scene. The EP quickly proved itself to be a fan favorite by landing a spot on Monster Cat's Best of 2017 compilation at the end of the year, which for reference only featured 30 of the 231 tracks Monster Cat released that year. But unfortunately, in true Monster Cat fashion, the fan favorite artist was just a one-off, and Dumu faded back into the chill out SoundCloud scene. Nah, just kidding. He literally released the best track ever released on Monstercat a few months later. On July 21st, 2017, Dumu teamed up with Mindsight for What Feels Right, his follow-up Monstercat release. The bright tune released in the heart of the summer and was unlike any future-based track released on Monstercat. The intro was quiet, featured phasing in and out vocal chops, and slowly evolved piece by piece into its incredible intro. Full of pitch changes and strange chord progressions that somehow work so well, the track barely gives you any time to enjoy that part until it bubbles up and explodes into this noise wall distorted super saw drop, featuring a freestyle feeling melody worked into it. I try my best to go into these video essay things without giving my exact opinion on the specific tracks, but I really do have to mention that I've listened to every track on Monstercat multiple times, and this track is one out of 2,500 or some odd tracks that has resonated with me the most. I mean, how do you hear that second drop lead solo and not get pure serotonin? With a whole chill out EP and a noise wall future bass banger under his belt, it was time to see what Dumu would do next. Sometime during his extravagant 2017, Dumu moved from his home of France to the United Kingdom. It doesn't take a genius to realize that moving from your hometown to someplace new, let alone a new country, takes a serious mental toll on you. It's an extremely bittersweet circumstance. On one hand, you're about to conquer something totally new. Your life as you know it is about to totally change. You may find your truest, happiest self in your new place. On the other hand, you're leaving behind everything you've ever known. Your friends, your family, the little places you remember going when you were growing up. Most of all, you remember when you were a kid and when you were naive. Little me is exactly that. Dumu teamed up with Carnaboy for the calm nostalgic track in November 2017, who offered a well-fitting and organic letter to his younger self. The calm nostalgia of childhood continued with the debut of Dumu's Charlie alias, which released its first album on December 18th, and continued into 2018 with Swings, featuring Hikaru Station. It'd take Dumu a month to release another track, and when he did, it was clear he was in his element in his new place and ready for an even stronger 2018. On February 2nd, 2018, Dumu released his collaboration with Skyel, Take Me Away, on Monstercat. This track was nothing like his previous releases. It was vocal dependent, but not in the same way as Illuminate. It was future-based infused, but not in the same way as What Feels Right. Take Me Away felt more like a new side of Dumu, proving his sound could work well in the pop sphere. Dumu followed up Take Me Away on April 12, 2018 with his remix of Murn's Another Night. The track felt sonically similar to his first two Monstercat releases, with an explosive noise wall future bass drop and a solemn guitar lead. For the second drop, Dumu even threw back to his trap roots, leading on a dark trap drop, proving Dumu could combine the Illuminate style, What Feels Right style, and the banger side of him. Only 4 months into the year, Dumu was proving 2018 was going to be even stronger than 2017. Following the release of his second Charlie album, Dumu released his most popular track to date, Keep You, featuring Sundial. The fourth track from Monstercat's third compilation with Rocket League and their first featuring an All Instinct cast. In between Sundial's persuasive vocals, Dumu built up a slow, dreamy future bass track, building up to a stuttery stop and start massive future bass drop, leaving you spinning. Dumu would follow this track up with another future bass track, this time a little more calm and nostalgic, with the gorgeous vocals of Emiya. Forward made a big mark in Dumu's discography, and it arguably ended the more nostalgic tunes for at least the Dumu alias. With his career in full swing, there's now no more time to look back at what once was, and the only thing to look at now was forward. And forward he looked, continuing to expand his style by releasing his heaviest tune to date, Shifted, on San Holo's label Bitbird, and following it up with his remix of Drulu's Weird Machine. Hell, there wasn't even another Charlie album for the rest of the year. Dumu was in the zone, moving forward at the speed of light. Dumu kicked off 2019 with his return to Monstercat, Wash Away, featuring Danica Nadeau. Theming the drop around a washboard-sounding rhythm, the track featured the big distorted sounds heard throughout his past tracks. It was clear the next page of Dumu was pop, but if it wasn't clear enough, his next release, You Say, with Pauline Her, would cement it. Another very different track for Dumu, he once again relied on the organic vocals, while his new-sounding minimal production took a backseat. His new 2019 track sounded really happy, and it even proved itself with the February 2019 release of the third Charlie album, Sunshine, which felt a lot less nostalgic and instead more upbeat and forward-looking with his tracks such as Happy Place and Her, all the while continuing his dive into electronic pop while his next Dumu EP was in the works.
My heart's got
After finishing production on his next project, Dumu moved to Singapore to further pursue his music career. Soon after, he'd mark a new chapter of Dumu with the release of the Talk EP in September 2019. The lead single with the same title featured Emiya, but this was anything but a follow-up to Forward. Talk was aggressive and suggestive, with a massive drop in high-energy vocals from Emiya. Simultaneously, Dumu furthered his pop style, but stayed true to his electronic roots. The full release of the EP would prove against the notion that Dumu would stay a strictly pop artist carried by vocalists in his first 4 minutes. Blinded, the EP's first track, featured Dumu's own vocals as he softly hums a vague story about being blinded by an unfamiliar glare. His vocals are interrupted by the colossal trap drop, slamming you with aggressiveness and darkness never heard before in the Dumu alias. With another catchy pop ballad and intentions featuring GLNNA, the sophomore EP ended with another new side of Dumu, the nostalgic Feather. Dumu returned to house for the first time in over 4 years, but totally reimagined the sound he had progressed over the past 4 years. Feather was just 3 minutes, but progressed masterfully. Taking a look back on the EP and Dumu's last 2 years of the alias, maybe he was onto something with this house sound.
I just turned 18, saw your whole life in front of me.
The Talk EP would be the grand finale of Dumu's 2019, at least for original music. For now, we had to patiently wait for what Dumu had planned for 2020. Oh man, welcome to 2020, a new decade, baby. Let's start off strong. Let's rewind like a month before we go into that, though. Before the world literally ended, Dumu released his collaboration with a good friend Mern, All for Nothing, a track that was super unfamiliar for both artists. The track sounded a bit sadder, contrary to the aggressive happiness that was brought about from Dumu's last EP in September, or even Mern's poppy direction he took on his debut album last October. All for Nothing felt solemn, not quite nostalgic, but just solemn, like a genuine wish things could have gone better. The same mood was mirrored in the fourth Charlie album that was released in the same month, titled 6 Degrees. Listening to the first 2 pieces Charlie put out that year, it was unpredictable to see which direction he would go down. Would he fall back into his nostalgic style? Maybe go deeper into the house style we heard in Feather? I guess we just have to wait and see. 4 months into the coronavirus pandemic, Dumu released a bit of a mental health anthem titled Breathe Again. The track featured a bit of a return to form with a simple, slow future-based sound with a calming melody and vocal chops. Ideas once again mirrored in the 5th Charlie album, Headache, which included a track titled Take a Deep Breath. Breathe Again served as a more classic Dumu track as he slowly began to experiment with his style even further. An experiment he did. Dumu's next release would be a month later with Worst Part of Heaven featuring Trove. This track was anything but a follow-up to Breathe Again sonically. It was a totally different style, genre, and story. Trove tells an emotional story about a couple drifting away because of the presumed death of the other, while the instrumental takes so many surprise twists and turns. With a gorgeous build-up reminiscent of classic 2015 progressive house, the climax catches you by surprise with a minimal, quick, and surprisingly club drop. There was a lot to do with this newfound house style, and Dumu did take advantage of it. A few months later, he dropped Never Had featuring Maggie York, featuring some of the same gorgeous breakdowns and humming with a similar clubby drop and a whole lot of future house influence. After a small remix contest for the track, Dumu had new sights for 2021.
Yo, can you keep a secret?
Hey, it's nice to see you, and notice how your eyes are see-through.
Dumu ended the year detailing his goals for 2021. He admitted that he felt some of his music has felt more or less like bridge releases, or releases that he felt would just hold people over for the next important track, and with that, he wasn't satisfied. The Dumu project started as a project of passion and self-reflection, a place where a teenager could pour emotions into sound, and with the path the alias was taking, it was being engulfed by the toxicity of the industry, and was beginning to feel more and more like a product, rather than music from the heart. In 2021, Dumu set out to change that. The year kicked off with Dumu's track with Magent and Haneri, Waiting on You, in mid-February. The track felt a bit brighter, but with melancholic undertones. The warm instrumentals from Magent and strong vocals from Haneri, the track felt Dumu enough, but noticeably a bit different. The release was followed up a month and a half later with a full EP with Magent. The two proved to be a power duo together, combining both of their soft instrumentals and vocals across the project to create an auditory vent of being burnt out. The EP gets incredibly candid and connects with Dumu's end of 2020 post, especially in the title track. The EP proved that Dumu meant it when he said he was going to take a break from the industry in 2021. A chill-out bedroom pop EP with the theme of being burnt out was far from the consumer's demand, but he simply didn't care. He was making music for himself again. With the burnout came Dumu's move back to France from Singapore. Again, he'd leave his friends and new home behind and go back and once again find a new footing. Seasons, the sixth Charlie album, dropped on July 12th. The album went into depth about the new move once again, carrying themes of growing up and letting go as always, along with a theme of waiting. As he put it in the album teaser, waiting to find out if he could stay in Singapore and waiting to move back home. Maybe I just had a deeper connection to this album than the others, but this one felt a bit different, especially in the tracks like Best to Let It Go. Dumu got more raw emotionally than ever. The vocals were polished to perfection and the instrumental was just quiet enough to do some reflection. It wouldn't be long before Dumu made another track announcement. On September 10th, he dropped Close to You with frequent collaborator Emiya. It felt like another return to form, combining his warm instrumentals heard in the Burnt Out EP with his classic 2018 style vocal chops and drowned out sound design. A few weeks after the release of the track, Dumu announced a new EP, After You, which was set to release on October 22nd, along with another song announcement, Not the Same. Dumu teased the track by saying it was the rawest thing he'd ever made, which after hearing the incredibly resonating 6th Charlie album, terrified me. The track dropped on October 1st, and Jesus. Not the Same felt like everything the Dumu alias had built up to. Dumu featured his own vocals in their rawest form, singing in detail of moving on and being terrified of what's to come as the world keeps turning. The drop genuinely just stun locks you, and some of the strongest hitting drops Dumu's ever put out, with an incredibly euphoric sound and adorable chord progression to follow it up. The second half of the song marked a true change in Dumu's sound, as he just about dropped his electronic roots and went full on what feels like indie rock. I've used this word in this video a lot by now, but the best way I can describe this track is raw. Raw production, raw vocals, raw emotion. This is what the Dumu alias was all about, and this is what he meant by making music for himself again. In a way, it felt like a grand finale to the alias, like the song that plays the end of a movie. Oh, for fuck. Literally as I was writing the script for this video, Dumu announced that he was ending the alias after the After You EP. It was time to move on. Everything had been accomplished under Dumu. Everything he had wanted to accomplish in this chapter of his life was done. It was finally time to shift focus. Dumu's final piece of music released on October 22nd, with 3 new tracks exploring all different areas of his sound as usual. The intro track, Wish That I, gave us one more dip into Dumu's future house style. Paralyzed does exactly what the title entails. If you wanted more of that explosive, end-of-the-road style future bass you heard Not the Same, Paralyzed was for you. A track about needing some space and some extra room, and not running away anymore. If I See You closed out the EP, a gorgeous ambient piece with deep hitting vocals. I'd be 100% lying if I said I didn't tear up listening to this one. It was the perfect end to the journey. To say that the After You EP is his best and most close to home work to date is an understatement. The EP hit every mark, and the announcement of the departure of the Dumu alias just made it hit even more. Explosions of euphoric sounds, subtle vocals to hug the louder tracks, and constant change-ups in styles within the whole EP, the Dumu journey came to a head. And just like that, the storybook closed. In my dive of Dumu's discography, I discovered just how much one person can craft emotions into sound. I discovered that it was possible for someone to craft the feeling of moving away and losing friends and lovers into sound. That it was possible for someone to combine the feeling of shifting focus and life changes into loud supersaws and genius chord progressions. And the most impressive part, he successfully let his sound grow up with him. When you start hearing these songs, you hear a young man, his current life experiences being put into song, and by the end of them, you hear a confident adult, with all of his trials and tribulations behind him, once again ready to take on whatever life has to throw at him. It isn't the first time, and it definitely won't be the last time. With this genius end to the alias, I'm fascinated as to what Charlie's going to do next. There's still plenty of more challenges to go through, and how he crafts those challenges into sound will always keep me interested. For now, we'll just have to wait and see what's next in the dynamic mind of Dumu.